Okay, so let's go through doing the pen, or using the pen tool to create the pair again. Won't hurt to redo. Remember, the pair is comprised of several different parts. There's the stem. There, I guess they have some other shapes on top of it. So there's the stem, there's the leaf, there is the parrot itself, and there are the arrowheads. Okay? And then there's a few little shapes in between this little arc. There's these little shapes. So these are all the parts. So let's do them one by one. I'm going to zoom in on the stem first. And they've already drawn it for us. But it's, the tangent handles need to be tweaked. That's all. See, if I click on here, there's already a path that's built for us. Can anybody tell me the key commands to zoom in quickly? There's a couple of ways to do it. You can hit Command plus, or if while on any other tool, if I hold down the Command key and the space bar, it turns into the zoom tool. If I hold down the Option Command space bar, it turns to the zoom out tool. Okay. Apple space bar, zoom in. Apple space bar and the Alt key, zoom out. And when you do that, when you move over a particular area and you zoom in, notice that it becomes the center. When it zooms in, if I click on this corner, notice how it now has become the center at the center when you zoom in. Okay, so what they want us to do is simply move the tangent handle. We've already created the path for us. That's what this is. We don't need to recreate the path. What they want us to do is to first start by selecting the tangent handles, and to do that, you need to use the direct selection tool. So when I click over one of the tangent handles, notice that it appears over one of the anchor points, and then the tangent handles appear. But notice what happens here. If I move one tangent handle, the other side moves, and it functions like a teeter totter, doesn't it? That's what it does by default, but I can separate them so that they function independent of one another. So I hit Command Z to undo that step, and now I use the Convert Anchor Point tool. And after creating a shape, or while creating a shape, you can use this tool to change the direction of the path. I want this curve to go in. I don't want it to be convex, I want it to be concave. So I simply click, and whoops, you have to click on the point itself. It's very picky. And look, I drag it in the direction. And now it's pulling it in that direction. Likewise, notice that it comes to a point down here. I need to pull out the tangent handles. So if you have a point with no tangent handles, you use the Convert Anchor Point tool to click on anchor point and drag. And if you have it turned around, see how it's in a knot? Just move it around, move your mouse around until it's untangled. If you pull out, notice that it pulls it way out. If you push it in, notice that it fits very nicely there. That's all they want us to do for that, so that you're changing those two anchor points using the Convert Anchor Point tool. And then we're done with the stem, except for filling it and maybe adding some other little details. If you want to fill it with this little gradient, that wouldn't be a bad idea. And if you also want, you can get rid of a stroke around the outside as well. Oh, come on. Okay, so I'll zoom out. Command minus to zoom out, and let's move over to the leaf. I'll zoom in on the leaf, and we're going to build the leaf. Okay, so the little dotted line is the path we want to follow. So I'll use the pen tool right here. And because I know it curves, what I'm going to do is click and drag the mouse to pull out the tangent handle that will be needed in order for this part of the path to curve in this direction. The tangent handle determines the direction of the curve that the path is going to go, and it also determines how curved it's going to be. How far do you know to pull that out? Only because they're telling us, and in the future, it will be experience that will tell you it's a very slight curve, I should only need to pull it out a little bit, or it's an extreme curve, I better really pull out. And then you may have to come back anyway and tweak it. Now I go to point B. Notice that it's already started to curve, and I click. And before I release the mouse, I drag until it matches. Now notice what I have here. I have a fill, and it's starting to fill that up. If I don't want that, I can go back to the default white fill, black stroke, make sure that the fill is in the front, and then select no fill so I can see the line underneath. One of the things that you'll do pretty frequently when you're tracing something, as you're tracing it, you'll want to make sure that there is no fill so you can see the underlying shape that you're trying to trace. Otherwise, as you create the shape, it will fill. It will build a fill and it will cover everything up underneath, and you don't want to be able to see what it is you're trying to trace. Now, because this is a nice, smooth, continuous curve, I move to point C, and I click, and look, if I pull in the wrong direction, notice what I'm doing. By me pulling the tangent handle down and up, notice that it's forcing the path to go up and the bubble up. But if I just simply move it around and pull it up, notice now it's pulled in the right direction. And look at my tangent handles don't match theirs, but the path does. That's the most important part. And it's more getting a feel for that, clicking and dragging and moving anchor points around and moving the tangent handles and getting the feel for how that works. If it doesn't follow their path precisely, no big deal. Notice that this doesn't either, but I can come back with the direct selection tool and I click on this anchor point and I can move it wherever I want. And I can pull on this and tweak it until it fits. You know? And before you know it, you just kind of massage everything into place. You typically move the anchor points first, make sure the tangent handles are going in the direction that they want, and then you can pull and push on those until you massage everything in its place. Step 2, that we talked about, at least this is the approach that I take. I don't remember what the book says. But what if you start and stop a path and you want to continue that path after you've stopped it? Notice it's deselected right now. How do I pick up where I left off? And it doesn't matter which side I start. It really doesn't. You move, huh? Yeah, you select the pen tool, move over the corner, and when you see the little forward slash, that means that when I click, that I will be activating that anchor point that's underneath it. If you're not sure where an anchor point is, you can always go to View and select Smart Guides. So now when I move over it, notice it says, you see the little thing where it notes if there's an anchor point, you can see the path. And when I move over here, some point along here, it'll say that there's a little anchor point. Here's where an anchor is. You don't even have to select it. It will be there. You could also hit Command Y, and that really doesn't help you either because you don't have the stroke anymore. But notice that when I move over that anchor point, it tells me that I moved over one. So I move over the corner for that anchor point, and I click, and it activates the path. And I want to pull in that direction. I really want to make a wide sweeping arc, so I click and I drag and pull the tangent handle out. Then I release the mouse. Then when I move over to the other end point, and this is critical to understand too, that when you close a path, you should see a little circle in the lower right-hand corner of that cursor. or that little, whatever you're using, the pen tool or the crosshairs. That indicates that when you click, that it will now close the path, so it's completely closed shape. Now, I didn't drag, so what did I do wrong? I mean, it's not a big deal, it's closed. I can always go back to my direct selection tool and I activate it, but I only have, look at it, I only have one hand handle. So what do? Do I undo? I could go back to the convert direction tool and I could click and drag until I pull it out. Now, look at when I pull this out, it matches along the top. Now this one doesn't match. But what I can do is I can now take and I can move this in like so until it fills. Now why it's not transparent, I don't know, because it shows that the fill should be none. This should be none. That is very bizarre. I should be able to see right through this. Very, very strange. I might be doing something, and I very well could. Yeah, see, I don't see the pattern. It's showing as if this had a fill. Now let's go back to it's not showing up. That's very strange. I should be able to see right through it like I see it up here. It's outside shape. Okay, so that's how you complete the path. That's how you make sure it's a closed path. And if you want to fill it with this nice little green color here, this gradient, you can do that. You want to tweak these anchor points, you can. And if I want to let go of the stroke, I can. So let's now go ahead and make it, unless you want to make the arrow, and then you tell me to stop or redo. Is it making more sense today? A little bit? To add the arrowheads in a tail to a path, we use one of the filters. So the way they have us do this is to use the pen tool to go from point A to point B. And it shows no stroke. I want to make sure that there's a stroke. I don't want to make sure that there's no fill. I just want a path. Now I know from experience it works better if this path is 3 points. How do I know that? Just because I've done it rather than try to change it in the past. And it doesn't tell you to do it in the book. So with path selected, I can change the stroke here, or I can go to window and I can select show stroke. Actually, it's it should be stroke. Yeah, there it is. And I can change it from here. Nice big thick stroke. Now what I want to do is cut it in half because I want to add the arrowhead. I want to be able to separate them. And I will be assured that they're going in exactly the same direction, that they're not off a little bit, they're not bent. Right? Cutting a single path that assures that they're going in the same direction. The tool that I use is underneath the eraser, it's the scissors. To use the scissors, you have to move on top of a path, and wherever you click is where it cuts it. And you know, now notice that from this middle point to B is where the path is. And if I select the selection tool, I can also select that. It's cut and paste. Now every path has a start point and it has an end point. That's determined by where you start the path and where you end the path. If I had started from point B and went to point A, then this would be my start point. This would be the end point. Does that make sense? So if I want to add an arrowhead to this, I have to know that this is the end point. So now I go to Filter, Stylize, Add Arrowheads. Notice it a whole bunch of different times. I'm going to use number 2, and I want it to be on the end. This would be the start, this would be the end. I don't want anything on the start. If you have something on the start, it will actually add another arrowhead to that end as well. I'm going to click OK. Yeah, notice it's just the right size. How do I know that? Because I've done this exercise more times than I'd like to think about. Now I can select the next path. Because this is the start point, I want the tail feathers on the start and nothing on the end. So with the path selected, I go back to Filter, go to Stylize, select Add Arrowheads, and now I make sure that there's nothing on the end, and I'm going to go backwards here. And there's a whole bunch of these, and I see that it's number 18 of 27 that matches this one. And I click, that's the one that I want, and voila, there it's go. So now when I move these, I can move them as a group, I can move them independently of one another, and notice that the arrowhead and tail feathers move along with it. Okay, we're ready for the parrot. To get to the hand tool, anybody tell me the keys that you hit? I'm on the selection tool. I want to get to the hand tool. How do I get that? Space bar. Hold down the space bar and then click and drag. Very useful. It's just if you use the mouse with your right hand, keep your left hand by the space bar and the shift option command key, because those are the ones that are used most frequently for key commands. Okay, well, we're going to start with a health to start with the starter point A. And I'm going to turn off smart guides. I don't need them. Select the pen tool. And now again, we talk this aloud so you understand this. We start by creating one of the little marks for the bite marks in the parrot. I know it's going to be curved, and I know I want it to go in that direction. So with the pen tool, I click and I drag to pull out a tangent handle. That assures me that when I go to point B, that this part of the curve here is going to be facing in this direction, and it's going to be curved somewhat. How much do you pull it out? They're telling us right now, but in the future when you do the first assignment, you're not going to know how far to pull it out. You'll have to come back and tweak it and fiddle with it until it works. So now I go to point B, just move the mouse, go to point B, and I click the mouse and I drag until it matches the underlying path. Now notice that to get an exact match, mine doesn't exactly match the little template that they have underneath, at least where the little sticks and the little red and amber balls are. I would rather that my line match the underlying template than the little ball and stick. I'm going to let go. Now I'm going to go back to single script. Now, before I go to point C, I need to take note that the tangent handle here lets me know that when I go to point C, that this part of the path is going to be pulled in this direction, in the direction of the tangent handle. I need it to go up in this direction, don't I? So, to be able to select the Convert Anchor Point tool on the fly, I hold down the Option or Alt key. Notice how the cursor changes. I move on top of the tangent handle, and I click and I drag and I pull it in the direction where I want the next part of the path to go. I move to point C and I click and notice it's already headed in the right direction over there. And now I pull, and again until it matches. And notice that my little tangent handle doesn't match theirs, but the path does. That's what's important. We're going to repeat that step again, because now if I go from C to D, I want to make sure that this path curves in this direction. But this tangent handle over here is telling me that if I go to point D, like here, see how it's already pulling in the wrong direction? So to avoid changing that afterwards, hold down the Option key, change this to the Convert Anchor Point tool. Click on the tangent handle and drag it around to the direction that I want to go. Now I can click and drag until it matches. Hold down the Option key. Click and drag and pull it in the direction where I want the next part of the path to go. Now the rest of this, because it's like a little wavy sine wave, I don't need to do that anymore. I just need to click and drag. Click and drag, click and drag. Click adds the anchor point, drag pulls out the tangent handle. So now I can go to point E and drag. And because now this is turning back, it's already heading in the direction where it needs to go. I click and I drag until it matches. I click and I drag until it matches. I click and I drag until it matches the underlying path. And I click and I drag until it matches. I click and I drag until it matches. And then I move over here and I just click. And it matches pretty well. If I need to go back and make any revisions, use the Direct Selection tool. Click and drag on anchor points on tangent handles to nudge it into place. Click on anchor points and move them until they are in place. And we can continue to move this around as much as we want. Any of the points, any of the tangent handles, if by mistake you want to change or convert an anchor point or a tangent handle, click. Select the Convert Anchor Point tool and watch what happens when I click. Gotta get on top of the tab. See how it changes it? Remove the tangent handles. If I click on here, watch what happens. It removed the tangent handles, it turned it into a corner point. Do I need to pull them out again? Sure, no problem. Use the same tool to click and drag, and notice that it's turned around, so I just move it in the other direction until it fits. So all these can be continually changed back and forth until you get it to massage it until you get it to fit. Now you take all the pieces and we'll go ahead and we'll, with the path selected, I can select I want the pair body. Probably don't want any stroke. And now we can start to put all the pieces together and scale them so they're the right size. I can put in little details using the brush tool maybe. But that's the core of this okay? So when you feel comfortable using the pen tool and you've done lessons 1 through 5, then what we're going to do is move on. We're going to do something called the beach scene. This is the only time that all of you will be doing the same thing together. And it's like having the same pieces of a puzzle, and you're going to put the puzzle together to create something that, believe it or not, it will all look different from one another. So by going to my website, kmart66.com, we can click on Kurt's Classes. Then when you're at Kurt's Classes, we're going to click on Handouts. Then when we get to Handouts, we're going to click on AI, Adobe Illustrator Assignment. And this will take us to Assignment 1, Beach Scene. When you download this, the file type will be an old Illustrator file. So when I click here to download, and it downloads this, you'll notice it says beachshapes.ai. So it's not going to open in a PDF folder. Notice that it's an old file. Now what I can do is, if I want, I can hide my elements on my screen. I look here, and here it is. It's called Beach Shapes. If I double click on it, oftentimes it will not open it in Illustrator. So it's best if you have Illustrator open first, and then click and drag the icon on top of the Illustrator icon, and it will launch it in Illustrator. And this is what it looks like. You have the elements of the kinds of things that you would have at the beach. We have an umbrella, we have a seashell, we have an ice cream truck, we have a palm tree, we have a cloud, we have some waves, and we have a sailboat. What you need to do is, using the pen tool, you need to trace each of these shapes as accurately as you possibly can. And then you're going to put them together, and if you want to make duplicates, triplicates, if you want a whole slew of seashells all over your beach, you can. If you want more than one umbrella, you can. You have to use each of these at least once, though. If you want a whole bunch of clouds, you can. And they can be different sizes, and they can be different colors, but I don't want them distorted. So it shows me that you know how to use the pen tool. That's all. Not because I think I'm trying to hamper your creativity. In fact, if you at least show, if you use the umbrella 2 times and at least one of them is not distorted, then that's fine. If the other one is distorted for whatever aesthetic reasons or artistic reasons, that's fine by me. At least keep it intact. And then you have your choice when you're done to use this file or to create a new file and drag the elements into it. And it can be vertical or horizontal. You can use whatever fills you want. You can also add additional elements. You can add an ocean, you can add sand, using whatever tools you like to build the rest of it. You can put it on a little desert island. You can do whatever comes to your mind. So, you want me to do a couple of these?
Sure.
Which ones? I'll do 2. I can tell you right now which one the hardest ones are.
Is it?
Huh?
Is a sailboat one of the hardest?
No, that's easy. Huh? Clouds are hard and seashell is hard.
Okay, do those.
Huh?
Do those then.
Okay.
We can't see the pull it up.
Huh?
We can't see the pull it up.
Did you click and drag on top of the icon on top of the Illustrator icon? You were able to download it, and you see the file. It says beach shapes. Yeah, drag it on top. Take one of them. You've not downloaded it a bunch of times. Just drag it on top of here on AI. Yeah, it has to go on right on top of it, directly on top of it. Yeah, keep going. No, it's behind it. Your mouse is kind of manky. See how it highlights it? Okay. And then release, and then it will launch. Okay? So, to do the little scallop shape is not hard. This down here will be a little bit harder. I like to zoom in so I can see a nice tight shot here. And we'll use the pen tool. Because I know that this is going to curve. I mean, I can start here, I can start here, you can start anywhere. And for whatever reason, I usually start in the upper left-hand corner and I go clockwise. Not always, but that's what I usually do. So I'll start here and I'll click on drag, pull out the tangent handle. And then I come over here and I click and I drag until it matches or comes close to matching. But at least it's going in the right direction, isn't it? Now what do I need to do so that when I go to the next point, and how do I know where to put another anchor point? That doesn't tell me when it changes direction. And it changes direction here. Just like we did before. Every time we go to another point, it changes direction. This is a little tricky, and this could be done in a number of ways. So now I go down the Option key, and I click and I drag and I pull it in that direction. And now I can click and I drag here until it comes close. It's not a perfect match, and I don't care because I'll come back when I'm done and I'll use the direct selection tool to manipulate the anchor points and the tangent handles. Because this is where the finesse comes in, that I don't know how far to pull those tangent handles from the start. I'm guessing. But in the exercise in the book, it tells us how far we need to pull them. So I'm repeating the same step. This is a scallop shape. Oops. Clicking on the point, and it doesn't like it. Whoops, I goofed. So let's go back. And since this is, now to stop this, I'm going to go ahead and hit Command blind so that it's in preview mode. How do I get this started again if I stop? I want to continue this path. I don't want to delete it and start all over again.
Direct selection tool?
Just select the pen tool, move over the corner, and click and drag to pull out the tangent handle. And then I continue. Now see, I pulled that too far. That's okay. I'm going to take this away too, so I can see through it. There we go. Again, hold on the Option key, click and drag, pull it in the right direction, and click and drag until it matches. And now I'm going from a curve to a straight line. So how do I get rid of this tangent handle? I hold down the Option key and I click on that anchor point and it removes it. Now I go to a straight line and I click. And now I come here and I click a little bit of a curve. Come over here, click until it curves. And I come over here and I click until it curves. And I come over here and I click and I drag. I'm clicking and dragging the whole way until that curves. Now watch, this is going to go way bonkers. See how that pulled out? I don't like that. Click and I drag until it curves, and then I just click. I'm not going to worry about that. I'm going to come back and fix it. And I can come back to the end. And how do I know I've reached the end? Because there's a little circle, and I click, and it's closed. Now I come back and I fix it. Because this is irritating the heck out of me. I'm going to zoom in here. I'm going to click on here. And let's see if we can pull that in like so. And I'm getting it to fit just right. And if I need to, click on the anchor point and just begin to massage these shapes. See how you can move these and manipulate them? Looks better from before, but before you know it, we'll get this worked out here. I think the tangent handle is in the right place for the anchor point. I'm not sure that I can move it. Now, that looks pretty good. I'm going to pull this out. I'm trying to get rid of this little blip. I'd rather have this nice and curved than have the little kink in it. So I'm just nudging these ever so slightly. why I did that? No, I'm start by making sure that the anchor point, I think, is pretty close to where it needs to be. Then I manipulate the handles a little bit until it matches the underlying anchor point. Make sure that it's the underlying template. Make sure that it is the proper type of point, whether you see tangent handles or not. You know that you would not see tangent handles here because it comes to an abrupt, there's an abrupt change in direction. When they're nice and smooth and curvy like this, then you want tangent handles because that's how you get curved. The clouds are pretty similar. You click here, you can click and drag to get a nice smooth curve. Click and drag, and then click and drag, stop, and click and drag.
So you can use many different kinds of movement, as long as
Yeah,
they
but
can
you know
tell.
what? This is like, this is, you can. This is kind of like that old song, that old game show, that I'll name that tune. You want to do it in as few anchor points as possible. See, like that pulls way far out. That's okay. So every time there's an abrupt change in direction, I'm adding an anchor point. And this is just clicking and dragging all the way around because it's a continuous series of kind of sine waves. And you can see that these require a little bit of attention when I'm done. But before you know it, I'm going all the way around. And it matches pretty close. Now I come back with my direct selection tool and I start. And I zoom in so I can get a nice tight view of it. See the little blip, the little, so what I'm going to do, I'm going to smooth it out by just moving it like so. I can move it like so until I get it nice and even and smooth. Similarly, I can take this, and if I want to pull this up just a little bit, see how it fixes that a little. Move around, see how that was so hot. Maybe take this, pull this out a little bit. Pull this one out a little. That looks much better. Pull this out a little bit more. That looks better, so it's nice and smooth. This one I said is pulled too far, pull it back. Get rid of that blip. That's pretty good. Move that down. Pull that back out if I need to. Move the tangent handle over if I need to. See the little bump? If I move that down and pull these out, that will help me get rid of that bump. See what I'm doing? And by the fewer points you use, the less probability you'll have of creating those kinds of little glitches or bumps. And if you have to add a point, you can add points. If you have to remove a point, remove a point. It's better, as I said, to try to use as few points as possible. this and I'll click over. See how that creates a little dip again? And maybe this needs to be pulled in. So get rid of that. Maybe this looks better. Doesn't follow quite, but this is a nice, it's a smoother curve than the one that they have. And then you have a nice smooth. So when you're done, completing all of these, and now you want to combine it and combine them into one. With some of these, you might want to make a group, since the truck is comprised of several parts. The umbrella is 2. Sailboat is multiple parts. And you select them and you hit Command G for grouping them. And then when you're done, save this. Then go to File New. And if you have some ideas, then you can create either a vertical or horizontal piece. We'll call it Beach soon. So I'm going to make this one horizontal. And now with both of them open, I can take this one using the Move tool. Oops, I didn't want to do that. Move tool. And click and just drag it over. And I've added that to that scene. So now I can go ahead and make it whatever color I want. And be with strokes, without strokes. You can, try to be as inventive as you can. As long as you use them all and you construct some sort of scene, it can be somewhat abstract too.
Can we change the size of it?
Oh yeah, you can come back and we can use the free transform. But I'll show you what I meant by keep one compact and one distorted. So let's say I want to make this a little bit smaller, and I also want to make a copy of this I'm going to use for a shadow. That makes sense. So if this is standing on end like a sign, another one was laying down, that I would go ahead and I could use the skew tool. Let me see how that is. Should be over here. Here it is. Shear tool. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and hit Option. And click on there. And I want this preview. And I want this to be at a specific angle. I'll put 45. It's not doing the thing. Okay, so cancel. So I'm going to go ahead instead. I'm just going to go ahead and copy it. The whole thing. Copy, and I'm going to paste in front. Just Command F. If you don't really know, I see how there's 2 now. Now I can use the skew tool. And I want it to skew from here. Like so. And I'll make this black. I don't want an outline. Now I can change the transparency. And now I can send it back. Click the range, send it back. It looks like a shadow. This one is distorted, this one is. And then I could also have another shape of some sort that's freehand, or it could be a rectangle that I made behind here. It's sort of the sand color. Whoops. There you go. Before you know it, you're creating a little scene, all the little elements. Okay? Do you have any questions? I would encourage you to get lessons 1 through 5 done first, so you feel pretty comfortable with the tools, and then download the shapes exercise or assignment, whatever you want to call it. And then if you feel comfortable, you might even get a napkin or a sheet of paper and sketch something out, get an idea of where you want to go with it. Not anything detailed, it can be really, really crude. You know, I'm going to put something here, I'm going to put a palm tree over here, and I'm going to do this and over here. So just have some idea. And then when you're in the middle of it, you can rearrange everything. You know, it doesn't matter, but that might give you some direction. Okay? You know. So since the rest of today's a work day, if you guys need to take a break, take a break whenever you need them. Okay. Turn this off.